My name is Susan Davis. I'm 65, a widow, and tonight I sat at my son's dinner table, feeling like a ghost. John and his wife, Karen, laughed with their friends, passing plates of roast chicken, while I stared at my empty glass. Nobody noticed. Not John, not Karen, not even the neighbors who used to wave at me when Tom was alive. They treated me like I was invisible, like I didn't matter anymore. But tomorrow, I'd walk into a boardroom at Tom's old company, where his boss, Mr. Warren, would call me ma'am, in front of everyone, including John. They had no idea I held the keys to their future. Thanks to Tom's legacy. 5 years ago, I lost Tom to cancer. He was my rock, the man who built Davis Construction with his hands and heart. After he died, I thought John would step up, take care of me like Tom always did. Instead, he and Karen pushed me aside, treating me like a burden. Tomorrow they'd learn the truth. Tom left me more than memories. He left me power nobody saw coming. The dining room was loud, filled with clinking glasses and Karen's sharp laugh. I sat at the end of the table, my plate barely touched. Emily, my granddaughter, sat next to me, her eyes flicking between her parents and me. "Grandma, you okay?" she whispered, her hand brushing mine. I forced a smile. "I'm fine, honey," I said, but my voice was thin. Across the table, John was talking about his new promotion at Davis Construction. "Big project coming up," he said, his chest puffed out. "I'm leading the downtown contract." Karen leaned in, her smile smug. "He's practically running the place now," she said, glancing at me like I was just there to fill a chair. Nobody mentioned Tom, or how he'd built the company John was so proud of. Nobody asked me about the roses I still tended in my garden, or how I'd spent my day sorting Tom's old papers. I felt like air, unseen, unheard. "Susan, you want more wine?" Karen asked, her tone sharp, like she was doing me a favor. I shook my head, my fingers tight around my napkin. "No thank you," I said, my voice soft. She shrugged and turned back to her friends, laughing about some vacation they'd planned. Emily squeezed my hand under the table, her eyes fierce. "They're being mean," she whispered. I patted her hand, my heart aching. "It's okay, honey," I said, but it wasn't. I'd raised John to be kind, to care for family, but he'd changed. Or maybe I'd just stopped seeing him clearly. The dinner dragged on, and I stayed quiet, my mind drifting to Tom. He'd always made me feel seen, even when I doubted myself. Before he died, he'd told me something I'd never forgotten. "Susan, you're stronger than you know. Hold on to what we built." I didn't understand then, but I was starting to. Tom had left me something nobody knew about. Not John, not Karen. Something that would change everything tomorrow. As dessert was served, my phone buzzed in my purse. I slipped it out, glancing at the screen. A text from Mr. Warren, Tom's old boss and the CEO of Davis Construction. "Mrs. Davis, looking forward to seeing you at the board meeting tomorrow. Your vote is critical." My heart skipped. Vote. Nobody at this table knew I held a controlling share in the company. A trust Tom set up before he died. I put the phone away, my hands steady now, like they were when I tended my roses. Emily noticed, her eyes curious. "Who was that, Grandma?" she asked. I smiled, soft but real. "Just an old friend," I said. The night ended with Karen ushering guests out, her voice loud and cheerful. John barely looked at me as I grabbed my coat. "You need a ride, Mom?" he asked, his tone flat, like he hoped I'd say no. "I'm fine," I said, my voice firm. Emily hugged me tight at the door. "I'm coming over tomorrow, okay?" she said. I nodded, my throat tight. "I'd like that, honey," I said. As I walked to my car, the cold air bit my cheeks, but I felt a spark inside, like a fire starting. Tomorrow, at Davis Construction, Mr. Warren would call me ma'am, and John and Karen would see me for the first time in years. But it wasn't about revenge. It was about showing them, and myself, who I really was. Back home, I sat in my living room, Tom's old chair empty beside me. I pulled out my notebook, the one I'd started when John and Karen tried to sell my house. I wrote, "They think I'm nothing, but Tom knew better. Tomorrow they'll know too." My hands didn't shake. I thought of Emily, her fierce eyes, and Mr. Warren's text. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from an unknown number. Stay out of the meeting, Susan, or you'll regret it. My breath caught. Who knew about the meeting? Karen? John? Someone else? I locked my doors, my heart pounding, but I wasn't scared. Not anymore. I wrote one more line in my notebook. They can try to stop me, but I'm done being invisible. I sat on my porch, the morning light pale, my coffee untouched. The threatening text from last night. Stay out of the meeting, Susan, or you'll regret it. Kept replaying in my mind. My hands gripped my notebook where I'd written. I'm done being invisible. Emily was coming over soon, and I needed to be strong for her, but my heart was racing. John and Karen had ignored me at dinner, but someone knew about the board meeting at Davis Construction, where Mr. Warren would call me ma'am and reveal my power over Tom's trust. Who sent that text? Was it Karen, trying to scare me? Or was there more I didn't see? I felt like I was walking into a trap, but Tom's words, "You're stronger than you know," kept me steady. Today, I'd face them all, and they'd see me. Emily arrived, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her face worried. "Grandma, you didn't sleep, did you?" she asked, sitting beside me. I shook my head, my eyes soft. "Not much, honey," I said. She grabbed my hand, her fingers warm. "You're going to that meeting, right? You can't let Mom and Dad stop you." Her voice was fierce, and it lit something in me. "I'm going," I said, squeezing her hand. "For us." She smiled, but her eyes flicked to my phone, like she knew something was wrong. I didn't tell her about the text. She was only 12, too young for that fear. My phone buzzed again and I flinched. It was Diane, my lawyer friend who'd helped me understand Tom's trust. "Susan, I found something," she said, her voice low. "Tom's trust doesn't just give you shares, it gives you veto power over major contracts. John's downtown project needs your approval." My heart skipped. Veto power? Tom had left me control over the company John thought he ran. "Does John know?" I asked, my voice shaky. Diane paused. "No, but someone's been trying to change the trust documents." I traced it to Karen's office computer. My stomach dropped. Karen tampering with Tom's legacy? That was why she wanted me out of the meeting. I thanked Diane, my hands trembling, and wrote in my notebook. Karen stealing more than my place. The first twist hit at noon. Emily and I were sorting through Tom's old files in my living room, looking for anything about the trust. She found a letter, tucked in an envelope marked for Susan. My heart stopped. It was Tom's handwriting. I opened it, my fingers shaking. "Susan, my love." It read. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, but I've left you everything, my shares, my trust, my heart. Don't let anyone take it. You're the soul of Davis Construction." Tears fell on the page, smudging the ink. Emily hugged me, her voice soft. "Grandpa believed in you, Grandma," she said. I nodded, my throat tight. "He did," I said, but the letter felt like a warning, like Tom knew trouble was coming. Then came another shock. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered, my voice cautious. "Susan, you're playing a dangerous game." A man's voice said, low and rough. "Skip the meeting or Emily gets hurt." My blood froze. Emily, sitting beside me, saw my face. "Grandma, what's wrong?" she asked, her eyes wide. I hung up, my hands shaking, and pulled her close. "Nothing, honey." I lied, but my heart was pounding. Who was that? Not Karen. Her voice was sharp, not deep. Was she working with someone else? I called Diane, my voice unsteady. "Someone threatened Emily," I said, telling her about the call. Diane's voice was sharp. "Susan, that's serious. I'm calling the police. Stay with Emily and don't leave the house until I get there." I nodded, holding Emily tighter, my fear mixing with anger. They weren't just coming for me. They were targeting my girl. Diane arrived with an officer, Tom's old friend Mike. "Susan, we're tracing the call," he said, his face serious. "But there's more. We found a paper trail. Someone's been siphoning money from Davis Construction to an offshore account. It's linked to Karen's email." My jaw dropped. "Karen stealing from the company?" Mike nodded. "We're building a case, but you need to be careful. That meeting's a target." I looked at Emily, her face pale, and felt a surge of resolve. "I'm not missing it," I said, my voice firm. Mike sighed. Then we'll have an officer outside the boardroom. Stay sharp, Susan. That afternoon, another twist came. Emily was on my laptop, checking my email for me. Grandma, look at this, she said, her voice shaking. It was an email from John's work account, sent to the board, saying I was unfit to vote on the trust due to mental confusion. My heart sank. John, my own son, calling me crazy? I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. He didn't mean it, Emily said, her voice small. Mom probably made him send it. I wanted to believe her, but the hurt was deep, like a knife in my chest. I forwarded the email to Diane, who called right away. Susan, this is defamation, she said. It's proof John's in on it. We'll use it in court if we need to. I nodded, but my eyes stung. My son turning on me like this. As evening fell, I got a call from Carol, my friend from church. Susan, I heard something at the diner, she said, her voice low. Karen was there, talking to a man tall, rough-looking. She said something about fixing the meeting. Be careful, okay? My stomach twisted. Karen meeting a stranger? Was he the one who called? I thanked Carol, my heart racing, and wrote in my notebook. Karen's not alone. I'm not either. Emily was drawing in her sketchbook, a picture of me with roses, like Tom's garden. Grandma, you're going to win, she said, her smile fierce. I hugged her, tears in my eyes. With you I will, I said. That night, I checked my purse, making sure Tom's letter and the trust papers were safe. My phone buzzed again, no number. Last chance, Susan, the text read. Stay away. I didn't flinch this time. I showed it to Diane, who said, they're desperate. We're close. I looked at Emily, asleep on my couch, her face peaceful. I wrote one last line in my notebook. They can threaten me, but I'm fighting for her. Tomorrow at the board meeting, Mr. Warren would call me ma'am, and I'd show them all what Tom saw in me. But the threats were real, and I wasn't sure who I could trust. I woke up with a start, my heart pounding, the threatening text. Last chance, Susan. Stay away. Burned into my mind. The clock read 5 a.m. Too early for light, but I couldn't sleep. Emily was curled up on my couch, her sketchbook open to a drawing of me with roses. I tucked a blanket over her, my chest tight with love and fear. Today was the board meeting at Davis Construction, where Mr. Warren would call me ma'am and reveal my control over Tom's trust. But the threats were piling up. Karen's tampering, John's unfit email, that stranger's call about Emily. I felt like I was walking into a storm, but Tom's letter, "You're the soul of Davis Construction," gave me strength. I wrote in my notebook, "They want me scared, but I'm fighting for us." I made tea, my hands shaky, when Diane called. "Susan, we've got a problem," she said, her voice tense. "The board meeting's been moved up to 10 a.m., and someone tried to remove your name from the agenda. I stopped it, but Karen's behind this." My stomach dropped. Karen again? How does she know about my shares? I asked, my voice low so Emily wouldn't hear. Diane's tone hardened. "She doesn't, but she's digging. And there's more. The police traced that threatening call to a burner phone bought near John's office." My heart stopped. John involved in the threats? Or was someone using him? I thanked Diane, my mind spinning, and added to my notebook. John's closer to this than I thought. The first twist hit at breakfast. Emily was eating cereal when my phone buzzed with an email from Mr. Warren's assistant. "Mrs. Davis, please bring Tom's original trust documents today. There's a challenge to your authority." I froze, my spoon clattering. A challenge? Karen's work, no doubt. Emily saw my face. "Grandma, what's wrong?" she asked, her eyes wide. I forced a smile, my voice soft. "Just some paperwork, honey," I said, but my hands shook as I grabbed Tom's letter and the trust papers from my safe. Whoever was fighting me knew more than I thought. Then came another shock. Mike, the police officer, knocked on my door, his face grim. "Susan, we found something," he said, holding a photo. It was Karen meeting a man in a diner parking lot, the same tall, rough-looking guy Carol mentioned. "This is Ray Carter," Mike said. "He's got a record. Extortion threats. We think Karen hired him to scare you." My blood ran cold. Ray, the voice on the phone? Threatening Emily? I gripped the table, my voice shaking. "Can you stop him?" I asked. Mike nodded. We're tracking him, but stay with Emily today. I'll have an officer at the meeting. I hugged Emily, who'd overheard, her face pale. Grandma, I'm scared, she whispered. I held her tight, my heart breaking. I won't let him near you, I said, my voice fierce. At 8 a.m., another twist landed. I got a call from Betty, my neighbor. Susan, someone was at your house last night, she said, her voice nervous. I saw a man looking through your windows, then he drove off in a black truck. My stomach twisted. Ray? Or someone else? I told Betty to call Mike if she saw him again, then checked my locks, my fear growing. Emily grabbed my hand. Grandma, you have to go to that meeting, she said, her eyes fierce. Grandpa left you those shares for a reason. I nodded, her strength fueling mine. I'm going, honey, I said, but my heart was heavy. What else were they planning? Diane picked us up, her face set. Susan, I found another email, she said as we drove to the courthouse. It's from Karen to John saying, if Susan shows up, we lose everything. They're desperate. My chest tightened. John knew? I looked at Emily, who was staring out the window, her jaw tight. Dad's in trouble, isn't he? She asked, her voice small. I didn't answer, but my silence said enough. At the courthouse, Mike met us, his voice low. Susan, we arrested Ray an hour ago, he said. He's talking, saying Karen paid him to keep you away. My heart leaped. Ray was caught, but Mike's face stayed grim. He also said Karen's got a backup plan for the meeting. Be ready. Inside the boardroom, the air was thick with tension. Mr. Warren greeted me, his eyes kind. Mrs. Davis, good to see you, he said, shaking my hand. John was there, his face pale, avoiding my eyes. Karen sat beside him, her smile tight, like she was hiding something. Emily stayed close, her hand in mine. The meeting started, and Mr. Warren stood. Before we begin, we need to address the trust, he said. Mrs. Davis holds the controlling shares and veto power. Karen's face froze, her eyes darting to John. Then came the biggest twist. A man stood up, a lawyer, Richard Lee. I represent Mrs. Karen Davis, he said. We challenge Mrs. Susan Davis's authority, citing her mental instability. My heart stopped. Mental instability? The same lie from John's email. I gripped Emily's hand, my voice shaking. That's a lie, I said loud enough for everyone to hear. Diane stood, her voice sharp. We have proof of fraud, she said, holding up papers. Karen forged documents to change the trust, and John sent defamatory emails. The room went quiet, all eyes on Karen. She stood, her face red. This is nonsense, she shouted. Susan's confused, old, she can't handle this. Emily's hand tightened in mine, her voice low. Don't let her win, Grandma, she whispered. I stood, my voice steady. I'm not confused, I said, holding up Tom's letter. My husband trusted me with his legacy, and I'm here to protect it. Mr. Warren nodded, his voice firm. Ma'am, please present your documents. Karen's eyes widened, her face pale. John looked at me, his mouth open, like he was seeing me for the first time. Before I could speak, another twist hit. The door opened and Mike walked in, 2 officers behind him. Karen Davis, he said. You're under arrest for fraud and extortion. The room gasped. Karen screamed, this is a mistake. But the officers cuffed her, leading her out. John stood, his face ashen. Mom, I didn't know, he said, his voice breaking. I looked at him, my heart torn. You should've, I said, my voice soft but firm. Emily hugged me, tears in her eyes. You did it, Grandma, she said. I held her close, my own tears falling. I wrote in my notebook later. They tried to break me, but I stood tall. The meeting wasn't over, and more secrets were coming, but for now I was seen. I stood in the boardroom, my heart still racing from Karen's arrest. Her screams echoed in my head as the officers dragged her out, cuffs on her wrists. Emily clung to my arm, her eyes wet but fierce. John sat across the table, his face pale, hands shaking. Mr. Warren, Tom's old boss, looked at me, his voice calm. Ma'am, let's continue, he said, nodding at my papers. I clutched Tom's trust documents, my resolve hard like the roses I grew. Karen was gone, but the lawyer, Richard Lee, was still here, eyeing me like a hawk. The air felt heavy, like a storm wasn't done. I wrote in my notebook later. Karen's down, but this fight's not over. Mrs. Davis, Richard said, standing, his voice slick. We still question your ability to vote. You've been absent from company matters for years. I stared at him, my chest tight. Absent? I said, my voice loud. Tom left me these shares. I'm here now. Emily squeezed my arm. Tell him, Grandma, she whispered. Mr. Warren raised a hand. Ma'am, present your documents, he said. I slid Tom's trust papers across the table, my hands steady. Richard's eyes narrowed, but he didn't speak. John looked at the papers, his mouth open. Mom, you had this all along, he asked, his voice low. I met his eyes, hurt sharp in my chest. You never asked, John, I said. The first twist hit fast. Diane, my lawyer, stood up, her voice sharp. Mr. Lee, we have evidence Karen forged trust changes, she said, holding up a laptop. And emails from you advising her. The room gasped. Richard's face went red. That's a lie, he shouted, slamming his hand on the table. Diane didn't flinch. We traced your IP address, she said. You helped Karen steal from Susan. I stared at Richard, my heart pounding. He wasn't just Karen's lawyer. He was in on it. Emily whispered, he's bad, Grandma. I nodded, my voice soft. I know, honey, I said, holding her close. Mr. Warren turned to Richard, his eyes hard. Explain yourself, Lee, he said. Richard stuttered. I was just advising my client. Diane cut in, advising fraud? We're turning this over to the police. Richard grabbed his briefcase, his face pale. This isn't over, he muttered, storming out. John looked at me, his eyes wet. Mom, I didn't know about him, he said, his voice breaking. I shook my head, my voice firm. You knew enough, John, I said. You called me unfit. He looked down, silent, like a kid caught lying. Another twist came quick. My phone buzzed in my purse, and I glanced at it. A text from Betty, my neighbor. Susan, that black truck's back at your house. Called Mike. My stomach dropped. Ray was arrested. So who was at my house? I showed the text to Diane, my hands shaking. Mike's on it, she whispered, texting him. Emily saw my face. Grandma, is it that man again? She asked, her voice small. I forced a smile, my heart racing. It's okay, honey, I said, but it wasn't. Someone was still after me, even with Karen gone. Mr. Warren cleared his throat, his voice steady. Ma'am, let's vote on the downtown contract, he said. Your decision matters. I nodded. My mind split between the meeting and the truck. I need to review the contract first, I said, my voice calm but firm. John's head snapped up. Mom, you can't stop it, he said, his voice loud. It's my project. I looked at him, my eyes steady. It's Tom's company, John, I said. I'm protecting what he built. Emily smiled, her hand tight in mine. You're doing it, Grandma, she said. Then came a bigger shock. Mike burst into the room, his face grim. Susan, we caught the guy at your house, he said, holding up a phone. It's John's assistant, Tim. He says John paid him to scare you. The room went silent. John stood, his face white. That's not true, he shouted, his hands shaking. I never told Tim to do that. Mike stared at him, his voice hard. Tim's got texts from you, John, he said. Says you wanted Susan out of the way. I felt like the air was gone, my heart breaking. John, you did this? I asked, my voice cracking. He looked at me, tears in his eyes. Mom, I swear I didn't mean it like that, he said. Karen pushed me. She said we'd lose everything. Emily stood, her voice loud. Dad, you hurt Grandma, she said, tears streaming. John sank into his chair, his head in his hands. I'm sorry, Em, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I wanted to hug him, my son, but the pain was too deep. You broke my trust, John, I said, my voice soft. Diane touched my arm. Susan will handle him later, she said. Focus on the vote. I nodded, my eyes wet, but my resolve hard. Mr. Warren looked at me, his voice kind. Ma'am, what's your decision? He asked. Before I could answer, another twist hit. Carol, my church friend, rushed in, her face pale. Susan, I found something in Tom's old office at the church, she said, holding a USB drive. It's recordings, Tom talking about the trust, saying Karen couldn't be trusted. My heart leaped. Tom still protecting me? I took the drive, my hands trembling. Play it, I said, my voice firm. Diane plugged it into her laptop, and Tom's voice filled the room, warm and strong. Susan's the only one I trust with my shares, he said. If anyone tries to take them, they're stealing from her. The board members whispered, their eyes on me. John's face crumpled, like he'd heard his father's voice for the first time in years. Karen's lawyer wasn't done. A woman stood, Lisa, Richard's partner. Those recordings are old, she said, her voice sharp. They don't change the challenge. Diane stood, her voice louder. They prove intent, she said. Tom named Susan, not Karen or John. Lisa's face tightened, but she sat down. Mr. Warren nodded at me. Ma'am, your vote? He asked again. I looked at Emily, her eyes fierce, and John, broken across the table. I stood, my voice clear. I vote to pause the contract until we audit the finances, I said. Tom's company deserves that. The room was quiet, then Mr. Warren smiled. Well said, ma'am, he said. Later, I sat with Emily in the courthouse hall, my heart heavy but strong. Grandma, you were amazing, she said, hugging me. I smiled, tears falling. You kept me going, honey, I said. John approached, his eyes red. Mom, can we talk? He asked, his voice low. I looked at him, my hurt raw. Not yet, John, I said. You need to fix this first. He nodded, walking away, alone. My phone buzzed, a new text, no number. You won this round, Susan, but we're not done. I showed Diane, my heart racing. Someone's still out there, I said. She nodded, her face grim. We'll find them, she said. I wrote in my notebook. I'm seen now, but the fight's not over. I sat in my kitchen. The afternoon light dimmed through the curtains. Emily was coloring at the table, her crayons scratching softly, but her eyes kept darting to me. The board meeting was over, Karen was in jail, and John's betrayal, paying Tim to scare me, cut like a knife. Mr. Warren's ma'am still rang in my ears, proof I wasn't invisible, but that last text. You won this round, Susan, but we're not done, made my skin crawl. I gripped my notebook where I'd written. I'm seen, but someone's still watching. Diane was digging into the threat, and Mike was tracing Tim's texts, but I felt like the ground could shift any second. Tom's voice from the USB drive. Susan's the only one I trust. Kept me going, but I wasn't sure who I could trust now. Grandma, you okay? Emily asked, her voice small. I smiled, my heart heavy. Just thinking, honey, I said, touching her hair. She pushed her drawing toward me. A house with roses and me standing tall. That's you saving Grandpa's company, she said. My eyes stung. You make me strong, Em, I said, hugging her. My phone buzzed and I flinched, a call from Diane. Susan, we found something big, she said, her voice low. Tim's not just John's assistant. He's Karen's cousin. He's been feeding her info about the trust for years. My stomach dropped. Karen's cousin? In my son's office? Does John know? I asked, my voice shaking. Diane paused. We're not sure, but Tim's talking to the police now, she said. I hung up, my hands trembling, and wrote. Karen's reach is longer than I thought. The first twist hit hard. Mike showed up, his face tight. Susan, Tim gave us a name, he said, sitting down. Lisa, the lawyer from the meeting? She's not just Richard's partner. She's running a scheme to sell Davis Construction's assets to a rival company, Carter Enterprises. My heart stopped. Lisa behind it all. Why me? I asked, my voice loud. Mike leaned in. Your shares blocked the sale, he said. They need you out to push it through. Emily's eyes widened. They're stealing Grandpa's work? She asked, her voice shaking. I nodded, my jaw tight. Not if I stop them, I said, but fear not at me. Lisa wasn't alone. Carter Enterprises meant big money, big power. Another twist came fast. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered, my heart racing. Susan, you're digging too deep, a woman's voice said, cold and sharp. Drop the audit, or Emily's school gets a visit. My blood froze. Emily again? Who are you? I demanded, my voice fierce. The line went dead. I grabbed Emily, pulling her close. Grandma, what's wrong? She asked, her face pale. Nothing, honey. I lied, my voice soft, but I texted Diane. New threat. Emily's school. Diane replied. I'm on it. Stay with Mike. I looked at Emily, her crayon still, and felt rage bubble up. They could come for me, but not her. At dusk, a bigger shock landed. Carol, my church friend, called, her voice shaky. Susan, I found more in Tom's church office, she said. A notebook, hidden in a drawer. It's got names: Lisa, Richard, even someone named Victor Carter. My heart leaped. Victor Carter? From Carter Enterprises? I drove to the church with Emily and Mike, my hands tight on the wheel. Carol handed me the notebook, Tom's handwriting clear. Lisa and Richard approached me last year, he'd written. Wanted to buy Davis Construction. I said no. They mentioned Victor, watch him. My chest tightened. Tom knew they were trouble, and he'd warned me. Grandpa was like a detective, Emily said, her eyes wide. I nodded, tears falling. He was, honey, I said. Then came another twist. Mike's radio crackled, and an officer's voice came through. We found Tim's black truck, he said. It's got fake plates, and a laptop inside with emails to Victor Carter. My jaw dropped. Tim, working for Carter too? Mike's face hardened. Susan, this is bigger than Karen, he said. Carter's been pulling strings, using Karen and Tim to push you out. I gripped Tom's notebook, my voice low. They're all connected, I said. Emily grabbed my hand. Grandma, you can't let them win, she said, her voice fierce. I nodded, my resolve steel. I won't, I said. That night, Diane came over, her laptop open. Susan, I hacked into Lisa's email, she said, her voice low. She's meeting Victor Carter tomorrow at a warehouse downtown. They're planning to forge your signature on a sale agreement. My heart raced. Forge my signature? Again? We need to catch them, I said, my voice loud. Diane nodded. Mike's setting up a sting, she said. But Susan, you need to confront John first. He's still hiding something. I looked at Emily, asleep on my couch, and felt a pang. John, my son, caught in this web. I'll talk to him, I said, but my heart was heavy. The final twist hit at midnight. John showed up at my door, his face bruised. Mom, I need help, he said, his voice rough. I let him in, my eyes narrow. What did you do, John? I asked, my voice cold. He sat, his hands shaking. I didn't know Tim was Karen's cousin, he said. But I knew about Carter Enterprises. They offered me a deal, millions to sell the company. I said no, but Karen kept pushing. My heart sank. And the threats? I asked, my voice shaking. He looked down, tears falling. I told Tim to scare you, but not hurt you, he said. I thought you'd back off. Emily woke, hearing him, her voice sharp. Dad, how could you? She cried, running to me. John's face broke. I'm sorry, he said, voice cracking. I stood, my voice firm. John, you're telling Mike everything, I said. He nodded, his eyes broken. I will, Mom, he said. I wrote in my notebook. My son's falling, but I'm still standing. I stood in my living room, the clock ticking past midnight. John's bruised face burned into my mind. His confession, paying Tim to scare me, knowing about Carter Enterprises, felt like a slap. Emily slept upstairs, her tears over her dad's betrayal still fresh. My notebook lay open, my last words staring back. My son's falling, but I'm still standing. The new threat, drop the audit or Emily's school gets a visit, made my heart race. Tom's notebook, naming Victor Carter, sat on the table, a lifeline from my husband. I felt his strength in me, but I was tired, scared, and hurt. Diane's sting operation to catch Lisa and Victor was set for tomorrow, but John's words, Karen pushed me, not at me. Was he a victim too, or just weak? I wrote, I'm fighting for Emily, but my heart's breaking. Susan, you need sleep, Diane said, sitting across from me, her eyes soft. I shook my head, my voice low. I can't, Diane. They're after Emily now. She reached for my hand, her voice firm. Mike's got an officer at her school tomorrow. We'll keep her safe. I nodded, tears stinging. She's all I've got left, I said, my voice cracking. Diane's face hardened. You've got me, Carol, Mike, and Tom's legacy, she said. We're stopping Carter. I looked at Tom's notebook, my fingers tracing his writing. He knew they were trouble. I said, my voice soft. Diane nodded. He trusted you to fight them, she said. The first twist came at dawn. Mike called, his voice urgent. Susan, Tim flipped on Lisa, he said. He says she's got a fake trust document, ready to sell the company today, not tomorrow. My heart stopped. Today? How? I asked, my voice loud. She's in custody, Mike said, but she passed it to Victor Carter last night. He's meeting a buyer at Davis Construction this morning. I gripped the phone, my hands shaking. We need to stop him, I said. Mike's voice was grim. We're moving the sting to the office, he said. Get there by 8. I hung up, my mind racing, and woke Emily. Honey, we're going back downtown, I said, my voice steady. She rubbed her eyes, nodding. For Grandpa, right? She asked, her voice small. I hugged her, my heart. For us, I said. Another twist hit as we left. My phone buzzed, a voicemail from John, left an hour ago. Mom, I'm in trouble, he said, his voice shaky. Victor's men roughed me up. They know I'm talking to the police. I'm at the old warehouse on Elm. Please. The message cut off. My stomach dropped. John at the warehouse? Was it a trap? I called Mike, my voice trembling. John's in danger, I said, playing the voicemail. Mike's voice was tense. Stay put, Susan, he said. I'm tracking his phone. Focus on the office. I looked at Emily, her face pale. Grandma, we can't leave Dad, she whispered, tears falling. I held her close, my heart torn. Mike's got him, honey, I said, but I wasn't believe it. I wrote. My son's in deep and I'm losing him. At 7 a.m., Diane pulled up, her face set. Susan, there's more, she said, her voice low. I found a bank account in Lisa's name, linked to Carter Enterprises. She's been bribing board members to vote for the sale. My jaw dropped. Bribing them? I asked, my voice loud. Diane nodded, showing her tablet. 3 members, $50,000 each, she said. We've got their names. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. They're betraying Tom, I said, my voice shaking. Emily grabbed my hand, her voice fierce. Grandma, you're gonna stop them, she said. I nodded, her strength lifting me. I'm trying, Em, I said, but the weight of it all, John, Lisa, Victor, felt like too much. A bigger shock came at the office. We arrived at Davis Construction. Mike's police car parked outside. Mr. Warren met us, his face grim. Ma'am, Victor Carter's here already, he said, his voice low. He's in the conference room with 2 board members, pushing the sale. My heart raced. Now? I asked, my voice sharp. Mr. Warren nodded. They're claiming your shares are invalid, he said. I clutched Tom's notebook, my voice firm. Let's go in, I said. Emily grabbed my arm, her eyes wide. Grandma, be careful, she said, her voice small. I kissed her forehead, my heart full. Stay with Diane, honey, I said. Inside the conference room, Victor Carter stood, tall and smug, papers in hand. Mrs. Davis, he said, his voice smooth, you're late. We've voted to sell. I stared at him, my blood boiling. You can't vote without me, I said, my voice loud. Victor smiled cold. Your shares are disputed, he said, holding up a fake trust document. Diane stepped forward, her voice sharp. That's a forgery, she said, showing Tom's original trust. Susan holds 51%. Victor's smile faded, his eyes narrow. You're out of your depth, old lady, he said, his voice low. I stood taller, my voice clear. I'm Tom Davis's wife, I said. This is his company. Then came the biggest twist. Mike burst in, officers behind him, holding John, his face swollen. Victor Carter, you're under arrest, Mike said, his voice hard, for fraud, extortion, and assault. Victor's face went white. You've got nothing, he shouted, but Mike held up a phone. John recorded you last night, he said, threatening him, admitting the sale scheme. My heart stopped. John recording Victor? I looked at my son, his eyes meeting mine, full of pain. Mom, I had to, he said, his voice rough. I couldn't let them win. Emily ran to him, crying. Dad, you're hurt, she said, hugging him. I stood frozen, my heart torn, proud, hurt, scared. Victor lunged for the door, but an officer grabbed him. You'll pay for this, Susan, he yelled as they cuffed him. I looked at John, my voice soft. You did this for me? I asked, tears falling. He nodded, his voice breaking. I messed up, Mom, he said. I'm trying to fix it. Diane touched my arm, her voice low. Susan, the board's ready to vote again, she said. I nodded, wiping my eyes. Let's finish this, I said, my voice firm. Mr. Warren smiled, his voice warm. Ma'am, lead the way, he said. The board voted to block the sale, my shares standing strong. Later, I sat with Emily and John in my kitchen, the USB drive playing Tom's voice. You did it, Grandma, Emily said, her eyes bright. I hugged her, my heart full. We did, honey, I said. John looked at me, his voice low. Mom, can you forgive me? He asked, his eyes wet. I paused, my hurt deep. It'll take time, John, I said, my voice soft. My phone buzzed, a new text, no number. You stopped the sale, but I'm still here. I showed Diane, my heart racing. Someone's left, I said. She nodded, her face grim. We'll find them, she said. I wrote. I'm standing tall, but the shadows aren't gone. I sat on my porch, the evening air cool. My hands wrapped around a mug of tea. Emily was inside, sketching roses, her soft humming a comfort. The board meeting was over. Victor Carter arrested. The sale of Davis Construction stopped, my shares secure. John's recording had saved us, but his betrayal, paying Tim to scare me, still stung like a thorn. That new text, you stopped the sale, but I'm still here, kept me awake, a shadow I couldn't shake. Tom's voice from the USB drive. Susan's the only one I trust. Gave me strength, but I felt raw, like I'd fought a war and barely stood. I wrote in my notebook. I won, but someone's waiting. Grandma, you look tired, Emily said, stepping outside, her sketchbook under her arm. I smiled, my heart heavy. Just thinking, honey, I said, patting the chair beside me. She sat, her eyes serious. Dad's trying, right? She asked, her voice small. I nodded, my throat tight. He is, I said, but my hurt ran deep. John was at the police station, giving a statement about Victor. I wanted to forgive him, but trust was broken. My phone buzzed. Diane. Susan, we've got a lead on that text, she said, her voice low. It came from a burner phone near the warehouse where John was attacked. My heart skipped. The warehouse? I asked, my voice shaky. Yeah, Diane said. Someone's tying up loose ends. Stay with Emily tonight. I hung up, my hands trembling, and wrote. The shadows are closer. The first twist hit at nightfall. Mike knocked, his face grim. Susan, John's statement gave us something, he said, sitting down. Victor wasn't the boss. He was working for someone higher, Margaret Holt, a board member at Carter Enterprises. My jaw dropped. Margaret Holt? I'd met her once, at Tom's company picnic, her smile too sharp. Why me? I asked, my voice loud. Mike leaned in. Your audit's uncovering her embezzlement, he said. She's been skimming millions from Davis contracts. Emily's eyes widened. She's stealing Grandpa's money, she asked, her voice shaking. I nodded, my heart pounding. She's scared of me now, I said, my voice firm. Mike nodded. We're watching her, but she's slippery, he said. Another twist came fast. My phone rang, a private number. I answered, my heart racing. Susan, you're a problem. A woman's voice said, smooth and cold. Call off the audit or John doesn't make it home. My blood froze. John. Who's this? I demanded, my voice fierce. She laughed low. You'll know soon, she said, hanging up. I stared at the phone, my hands shaking. Grandma, what's wrong? Emily asked, her face pale. I forced a smile, my voice soft. Just a call, honey. I lied, but my fear was real. I texted Diane. Threat on John. Woman's voice. Diane replied. Sounds like Margaret. We're tracking her. I hugged Emily, my heart breaking. You're safe, Em, I said, but I wasn't sure. At 9 p.m., a bigger shock landed. Carol rushed over, her face pale, holding a letter. Susan, I found this in Tom's church files, she said, her voice shaky. It's from Margaret Holt to Tom, 2 years ago. I opened it, my hands trembling. Tom, sell Davis Construction to Carter, or we expose your family's secrets, it read. My heart stopped. Secrets? What did Tom hide? What secrets? I asked, my voice loud. Carol shook her head. I don't know, she said. But Tom never sold. Emily grabbed my hand, her voice fierce. Grandpa didn't give in. she said, her eyes bright. I nodded, tears falling. He didn't, honey, I said, but my mind spun. What did Margaret know? Another twist hit hard. Mike's phone buzzed, an officer's voice crackling. We found a hidden account, he said. Margaret's been paying Karen's legal fees. My jaw dropped. Karen still tied to this? How? I asked, my voice shaking. Mike's face hardened. Margaret used Karen to get to you, he said. Karen's been feeding her info from jail. I gripped the table, my voice low. They're all connected, I said. Emily's face fell. Mom's still hurting us? She asked, her voice small. I held her close, my heart aching. She can't win, Em, I said, my voice firm. At midnight, the biggest twist came. John stumbled through my door, his shirt torn, blood on his lip. Mom, I'm sorry, he said, collapsing into a chair, his voice rough. I stood, my heart torn. John, what happened? I asked, my voice loud. He looked at me, his eyes wet. Margaret's men grabbed me after the station, he said. They wanted me to sign over your shares. Emily ran to him, crying. Dad, you're hurt, she said, hugging him. John's voice broke. I didn't sign, Em, he said. I told them no. I stared at him, my chest tight. You fought for me? I asked, my voice soft. He nodded, tears falling. I owe you, Mom, he said. I messed up bad. Diane burst in, her face grim. Susan, we tracked Margaret, she said, her voice sharp. She's at Carter Enterprises' office shredding documents. I stood, my heart racing. We need to catch her, I said, my voice loud. Mike nodded, grabbing his radio. I'm calling backup, he said. John stood, his voice shaky. Mom, let me help, he said. I looked at him, my hurt deep but softening. You stay with Emily, I said, my voice firm. Keep her safe. He nodded, his eyes red. I will, Mom, he said, hugging Emily. Before I left, another shock hit. My phone buzzed, a video from an unknown number. It was Tom Older, sitting in his office. Susan, if you see this, I'm gone, he said, his voice warm. Margaret Holt's dangerous. She knows about my past, my brother's debt. Don't let her scare you. My heart stopped. Tom's brother, Frank, owed money? Was that the secret? I showed Diane, my voice shaking. Tom was protecting us, I said. She nodded, her face set. We'll use this, she said. I wrote. Tom's still fighting with me. At Carter Enterprises, the lights were dim, Margaret's office door ajar. Mike signaled, officers behind us. Susan, stay back, he whispered, his voice low. I nodded, my heart pounding, but my resolve was steel. Let's end this, I said, my voice soft. Emily's face, John's bruises, Tom's voice, they carried me forward. I stood outside Carter Enterprises, the night air cold against my face, my heart pounding like a drum. Mike's officers moved silently, their flashlights cutting through the dark. Margaret Holt was inside, shredding documents to cover her tracks, embezzlement, bribes, threats against me and Emily. Tom's video warning about her, and his brother Frank's debt, weighed heavy on me. John was home with Emily, his bruises a reminder of his fight to make things right. The latest threat. You stopped the sale, but I'm still here. Felt like a snake waiting to strike. I gripped my notebook in my purse where I'd written. Tom's still fighting with me. I felt his strength, but fear clawed at me. I whispered to myself, for Emily, and stepped closer to the building. Susan, stay here, Mike whispered, his voice low, gun drawn. I nodded, my hands trembling, but Diane grabbed my arm, her eyes sharp. We need you to ID Margaret, she said, her voice urgent. You've seen her before. My stomach twisted. Face her? Okay, I said, my voice shaky, my heart full of Emily's fierce eyes and Tom's warm voice. We crept toward the office door, the hum of a shredder loud inside. My phone buzzed, a text from John. Mom, Emily's safe. Be careful. I exhaled, my love for them steadying me, but the air felt thick with secrets. The first hidden twist hit like a lightning bolt. Mike kicked the door open, shouting, Police! Hands up. But Margaret wasn't alone. Richard Lee, the lawyer who'd challenged my shares, stood beside her, papers in his hands, his face pale. You. I gasped, my voice loud. Richard dropped the papers, his eyes wide. Susan, this isn't what it looks like. he stammered, his voice high. Diane's jaw dropped. You're supposed to be in jail, she said, her voice sharp. Mike grabbed him, his voice hard. You bailed out an hour ago, he said, cuffing him. Margaret smirked, her eyes cold. You're too late, she said, her voice low. The evidence is gone. I stared at her, my heart racing. Richard free in here? Who bailed him? Another twist came fast, hidden in the shadows. Diane snatched a paper from the floor, her eyes scanning it. Susan, this is a wire transfer, she said, her voice loud. Margaret sent money to Frank Davis, Tom's brother, last month. My heart stopped cold. Frank. The brother Tom's video mentioned, tangled in debt? Why Frank? I asked, my voice shaking. Margaret laughed, sharp and cruel. Tom thought he could hide his family's shame, she said, her voice dripping venom. Frank owed me millions. I used him to pressure Tom. I clutched my purse, my voice raw. You blackmailed my husband? I said, my voice loud. Margaret's smirk widened. And you, she said. But you wouldn't break. Mike pushed Margaret against the wall, his voice fierce. You're done, Holt, he said, cuffing her. But a third twist hit unseen. A shadow moved in the corner, a man older, slipping toward a back exit. Stop, an officer yelled, tackling him. Mike pulled him into the light, and my breath caught. Frank, I whispered, my voice breaking. Tom's brother, gray-haired, eyes hollow, stood there, a flash drive in his hand. Susan, I'm sorry, he said, his voice low, cracking. Margaret forced me. My heart shattered. Frank, part of this? You hurt Tom. I said, tears falling, my voice loud. He shook his head, eyes wet. I borrowed money years ago, he said. She turned it into her spy. Emily's face flashed in my mind. How could I tell her? A bigger hidden twist unraveled. Diane grabbed the flash drive from Frank, plugging it into her laptop. A video loaded. Not Tom, but Margaret talking to a man in a suit. Once Susan's out, we split Davis Construction, she said, her voice cold. The man nodded. My firm will handle the offshore accounts, he said. Diane gasped, her voice sharp. That's Paul Grayson, CEO of Grayson Holdings, she said. He's a silent partner, funding Margaret's scheme to gut Davis. I stared at the screen, my blood boiling. Another one? I said, my voice loud. Mike nodded, his face grim. Grayson's been dodging us for years, he said. This nails him. Margaret lunged at Diane, screaming, Give me that. But an officer held her back, her voice raw with panic. I stepped forward, my voice steady, shaking. You thought you could scare me out, I said, my eyes locked on Margaret. Tom trusted me, and I'm here. Margaret's face twisted, her voice venomous. You're nothing without him, she spat, her voice low. I felt a surge of strength, my voice clear. I'm Susan Davis, I said, my voice loud. And I'm enough. Diane squeezed my shoulder, her voice soft. You got her, Susan, she said, her voice soft. Another twist, hidden deep, struck hard. Mike's radio crackled, an officer's voice urgent. We found a burner phone in Frank's car, he said, voice tense. It sent the last threat to Susan. My heart stopped cold. Frank sending I'm still here? I turned to him, my voice shaking loud. You threatened Emily? I asked, my voice breaking, tears falling. Frank's face crumpled, his voice low. Margaret made me, he said, his voice barely a whisper. She said she'd kill my son if I didn't. My chest tightened. Frank's son, my nephew, Tommy? You should have told me, I said, my voice raw loud. Frank sobbed, his voice broken. I was scared, Susan, he said, his voice low, weak. Diane's phone buzzed, another shock hidden in plain sight. Susan, I just got a tip, she said, her voice low, urgent, eyes wide. Paul Grayson's on a private jet, leaving now. My heart raced fast. He's running. I asked, my voice loud, sharp. Mike grabbed his radio, his voice hard, commanding. Ground that jet, he said, his voice tense. Grayson's our last piece. I looked at Frank, still cuffed, his eyes down, and Margaret, glaring at me, her face pale, defeated. You're all falling, I said, my voice soft, firm, steady, my heart pounding. Diane nodded, her voice sharp, determined. We're not done, Susan, she said, her voice low. Back home, I sat with Emily, her head on my shoulder, her voice small, soft. Grandma, is it over? She asked, her eyes tired, hopeful. I kissed her forehead, my heart full, aching heavy. Almost honey, I said, my voice soft warm. John walked in, his face still bruised, his voice low hesitant. Mom, I talked to Mike, he said, his eyes wet pleading. I'm testifying against Grayson. My chest tightened, hurt and pride mixing, swirling. That's a start, John, I said, my voice soft, firm, steady. My phone buzzed, a new text, no number. Grayson's gone, but I see you, Susan. My heart froze cold. I showed Diane, my voice low, trembling. Someone's still out there, I said, my voice shaky, urgent. She nodded, her face grim set. We'll find them, she said, her voice low, fierce. I wrote in my notebook. I'm standing, but the dark's not empty. I sat in my kitchen. The morning light soft through the window. My hands tight around a coffee mug. Emily was upstairs, still asleep after last night's chaos. Margaret Holt and Richard Lee arrested. Frank's betrayal exposed. Paul Grayson fleeing on a jet. That chilling text. Grayson's gone, but I see you, Susan. Felt like a ghost in the room. John was at the police station, testifying against Grayson, trying to fix his mistakes. Tom's notebook lay open, his words about Frank's death a heavy truth. I felt his love, but my heart was bruised, torn between hope for John and fear of who was still watching. I wrote in my notebook. The dark's not empty, but I'm still here. Grandma, you didn't sleep, Emily said, patting in, her hair messy, eyes worried. I smiled, my chest aching. Not much, honey, I said, pulling her into a hug. Her warmth grounded me, like Tom's hugs used to. Is Dad okay? She asked, her voice small. I nodded, my throat tight. He's trying, I said, but my hurt lingered, sharp from his role in Tim's threats. My phone buzzed. Mike. Susan, we grounded Grayson's jet, he said, his voice tired but firm. He's in custody, but he's pointing fingers at someone else, a woman named Ellen Price. My heart skipped. Ellen Price? Who's she? I asked, my voice shaky. Mike paused. We don't know yet, he said. But she's tied to the burner phone texts. I gripped my mug, my hands trembling, and wrote. Ellen Price, another shadow. The first hidden twist struck hard. Diane rushed in, her laptop open, her face pale. Susan, I hacked Grayson's email, she said, her voice low. Ellen Price isn't just anyone, she's Margaret Holt's sister. My jaw dropped. Margaret's sister? She's been behind this? I asked, my voice loud. Diane nodded, her eyes wide. Ellen's been funding Margaret's scheme from offshore accounts, she said, showing a bank transfer. She sent the last threat to keep you scared. Emily's eyes widened, her voice shaking. Another bad lady, she whispered, clutching my hand. I held her tight, my heart pounding. She can't touch us, honey, I said, my voice firm. But fear not at me. Margaret's sister still out there? Another twist, buried deep, came fast. There's more, Diane said, her voice sharp. Ellen's on the Davis construction payroll, as a silent partner. My stomach dropped. In Tom's company? I gasped, my voice loud. Diane nodded, her voice grim. Tom hired her years ago as a consultant, she said. Before he knew about Margaret. She's been using her real last name. My heart sank. Tom tricked again? I thought of his video, his warning about Margaret, and felt a stab of pain. He didn't know. I whispered, my voice breaking. Emily hugged me, her voice fierce. Grandma, you'll stop her too, she said, her eyes bright. I nodded, tears falling, my voice steady. I have to, I said, my resolve hardening like steel. A bigger hidden twist hit at noon. Carol called, her voice panicked. Susan, I found a photo in Tom's church files, she said, her voice shaky. It's him, John, and Ellen Price at a company event, smiling. I froze, my breath catching. John knew Ellen? I asked, my voice loud. Carol's voice wavered. Looks like it, she said. There's a note on it. Ellen, thanks for believing in me. My heart shattered. John tied to Ellen? I drove to the station. Emily beside me, my hands tight on the wheel. Grandma, Dad wouldn't do that, Emily said, her voice small. I nodded, but doubt clawed at me. I hope not, honey, I said, my voice soft, my chest heavy. At the station, John faced me, his face bruised, eyes red. Mom, what's wrong? He asked, his voice low. I held up the photo, my voice shaking. You knew Ellen Price, I said, my voice loud, raw. John's face paled, his eyes wide. She was Dad's friend, he said, his voice quick. Just a consultant. I shook my head, tears falling. She's Margaret's sister, John, I said, my voice loud. She's threatening us. John's jaw dropped, his voice breaking. I didn't know, Mom, he said, his hands shaking. She gave me advice after Dad died. Helped with my projects. I stared at him, my heart torn. Did you tell her about my shares? I asked, my voice soft, sharp. He shook his head, his eyes wet. No, I swear, he said, his voice low. Emily grabbed my hand, her voice fierce. Dad, tell the truth, she said, crying. Mike stepped in, his voice calm. Susan, John's been honest so far, he said, his voice firm. But we found Ellen's laptop in Grayson's jet, he said, holding a flash drive. It's got a video. My heart raced fast. Play it, I said, my voice loud. The screen lit up, showing Ellen in an office, her voice cold. Susan's too stubborn, she said to Grayson. If she doesn't back off, we take her out, her family, one by one. My blood froze. She's after us all? I whispered, my voice shaking. John's face crumpled, his voice raw. Mom, I didn't know she was like that, he said, his tears falling. I looked at him, my hurt deep, but saw his pain. You're my son, I said, my voice soft, steady. But you need to help us. Another hidden twist, darker, landed. Mike's phone rang, an officer's voice tense. We found Ellen's car, he said, voice urgent. It's outside Emily. I stood frozen in the police station, Mike's words echoing. We found Ellen's car outside Emily's school. My heart pounded, fear for Emily choking me. John's face was ashen, his confession about Ellen Price, Margaret Holt's sister, a silent partner in Tom's company, still raw. Ellen's video, threatening my family, played in my mind. Tom's notebook, his warnings about Margaret and Frank's debt, sat heavy in my purse. I gripped my own notebook where I'd written. The dark's not empty, but I'm still here. Emily clung to me, her eyes wide, her voice small. Grandma, I'm scared, she said. I hugged her tight, my voice fierce. I've got you, honey, I said, my resolve steel despite the terror. Ellen was out there, and I wasn't invisible anymore. She saw me, and I'd make sure she faced me. Susan, we're moving now, Mike said, his voice sharp, grabbing his radio. Ellen's at the school, but we've got officers closing in. I nodded, my heart racing. I'm coming, I said, my voice loud. Diane grabbed my arm, her eyes worried. Susan, it's dangerous, she said, her voice low. I shook my head, my voice steady. She's after Emily, I said. I'm not sitting back. John stepped forward, his face bruised, voice rough. Mom, let me help, he said, his eyes wet. I looked at him, my hurt deep but softening. Stay with Mike, I said, my voice firm. Keep talking. Emily squeezed my hand, her voice fierce. Grandma, you're stronger than her, she said. I kissed her forehead, my heart full. For you I am, I said. The first hidden twist hit as we sped to the school. Mike's radio crackled, an officer's voice tense. Ellen's not alone, he said, voice urgent. She's with Lisa Carter, Victor's wife. My jaw dropped. Lisa, Victor Carter's sister, who'd pushed the company sale with Karen. Lisa's out of jail? I asked, my voice loud, sharp. Mike nodded, his face grim. Bailed this morning, he said, his voice tight. She's been working with Ellen from the start. My stomach twisted, another layer of betrayal. They're all connected, I whispered, my voice shaking, gripping Tom's notebook. Diane's voice was fierce. We'll get them, Susan, she said, her eyes on her laptop, tracking the officers. I wrote in my mind. Every shadow has a name. At the school, the parking lot was quiet. Officers crouched behind cars. Emily stayed in Mike's car with an officer, her eyes locked on me. I stood with Diane, my heart pounding, Tom's words. You're enough, steadying me. Mike signaled, his voice low. Ellen and Lisa are in the gym office, he whispered, voice tense. They've got a laptop uploading fake sale documents. My blood boiled, my voice loud. They're still trying to steal Tom's company? I said, my voice raw. Mike nodded, his voice firm. We're stopping them, he said, moving forward. I followed, my fear for Emily mixing with rage, my resolve unbreakable. A bigger twist, hidden in plain sight, struck hard. We burst into the gym office, Mike shouting, "Police! Hands up!" Ellen stood at a desk, laptop open, her face cold, smirking. Lisa was beside her, papers in hand, her eyes wide, panicked. But a third figure sat in the corner. Betty, my neighbor, tied up, her face bruised. "Betty." I gasped, my voice loud, heart stopping, breaking. Ellen laughed, her voice sharp, cruel. "She saw too much," she said, her voice low, venomous. "Snooping at your house." My chest tightened, tears falling. "You hurt my friend?" I said, my voice loud, raw, shaking. Betty's eyes met mine, her voice weak, soft. "Susan, I'm sorry," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Mike uncuffed her, his voice fierce, hard. "You're safe now," he said, his voice steady. Ellen grabbed the laptop, her voice cold, sharp. "You can't stop this," she said, her voice loud, typing fast. Diane lunged, snatching it, her voice sharp, loud. "It's over, Ellen," she said, her voice fierce, showing the screen. "Emails to an offshore buyer, signed with my forged name." I stepped forward, my voice steady, loud, clear. "You used Tom's trust against me," I said, my eyes locked on Ellen. "But I'm his wife and I'm here." Ellen's smirk faded, her voice low, venomous. "You're nothing, Susan," she said, her voice sharp, cutting. I felt Tom's strength, my voice loud, firm, unshaken. "I'm enough," I said, my voice clear, echoing. Another hidden twist unraveled, dark and deep. Mike's phone buzzed, an officer's voice urgent, tense. "We found a safe in Ellen's car," he said, voice loud, fast. "It's got Tom's missing will, naming Susan as sole heir." My heart stopped cold, my breath catching, tears falling. "Tom's will," I whispered, my voice soft, breaking, raw. Ellen's face went white, her voice shaking loud. "That's a lie," she shouted, her voice raw, panicked, desperate. Diane pulled up a scan of the will on her laptop, her voice sharp, loud, triumphant. "It's real," she said, her voice fierce, clear. "Tom left everything to you, Susan. Not Frank, not Ellen." My chest swelled, my voice soft, steady, warm. "He believed in me," I said, my voice full of love, tears streaming, heart full. The final twist, buried deepest, hit like a wave. John burst in, his face bruised, voice loud, raw. "Mom, I found something," he said, holding a USB drive, his eyes wet, desperate. "It's from Ellen's office, recordings of her and Margaret, planning to frame you for fraud." My jaw dropped, my heart racing, fast, full. "Frame me?" I asked, my voice loud, shaking, raw. John nodded, his voice breaking, soft, pained. "They wanted you in jail," he said, his voice low, cracking. "I took it to save you." Emily ran to him, crying, her voice loud, fierce. "Dad, you did it," she said, hugging him, her eyes bright, shining. I looked at John, my hurt softening, my voice soft, warm, steady. "You're trying, John," I said, my voice full. Tears falling, heart opening. Mike cuffed Ellen and Lisa, his voice hard, steady, final. "You're done," he said, his voice loud, clear, leading them out. Betty hugged me, her voice weak, soft, warm. "You're so strong, Susan," she said, her voice full of awe, love. I held her, my heart full, aching, grateful. "You're my family," I said, my voice soft, warm, steady. At home, I sat with Emily and John, Tom's will on the table, his voice from the USB drive playing softly, warm, strong. "Grandma, you won," Emily said, her eyes bright, fierce, full of love, hugging me tight. I smiled, tears falling, my voice soft, warm, full. "We won, honey," I said, my heart swelling, complete. John looked at me, his voice low, soft, broken. "Mom, can you forgive me?" he asked, his eyes wet, pleading, full of pain. I paused, my hurt deep, but my love deeper, stronger, eternal. "I'm working on it, John," I said, my voice soft, steady, warm, reaching for his hand. "We'll get there." He nodded, tears falling, his voice soft, grateful, hopeful. "Thank you, Mom," he said, his voice low, warm, full. My phone stayed quiet, no new texts, no shadows. I wrote in my notebook. I was invisible, but Tom saw me, Emily saw me, and now I see myself. 6 months later, I stood in my garden, roses blooming bright, red, full, strong. Emily ran through the grass, laughing, her sketchbook full of new drawings. Me, John, Tom's company, thriving under my lead. John worked beside me, rebuilding trust one day at a time, his smile soft, hopeful, real. Diane and Mike visited, their voices warm, proud, full. "You saved it all, Susan," Diane said, her voice soft, full of all love. I smiled, my heart light, full, complete. "I just held on to what mattered," I said, my voice soft, warm, steady, looking at Emily, my family, my strength. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was Susan Davis, and I was enough.